Welcome into the Boston Sports Summit. I am your host, Tim Barnett, and this is presented by the Grid Network. Oh my goodness, what is going on? It has been a couple weeks. Obviously, a lot has gone on. Mike Vrabel, as we all know, is now the Patriots head coach, and he's added some more guys to his staff. Not to mention the Bruins. I mean, who the hell are they? You know, what Bruins team are we watching night in and night out? Do they even know who they are? I mean, it's wild to see what's going on over with the black and gold. And as for the green, they look exactly the same. They look like they did basically since Tatum and Brown arrived, you know, and it almost feels like last year's team was the outlier, which is kind of crazy to me when you look at the talent up and down this roster. So we're going to talk about that a little later. And then lastly, the Red Sox. You know, I talk about them so much that it's always such a negative spin, such a negative tone, because let's face it, the Red Sox, that's all they give us. That's all they give us. Maybe the one positive I talked about them was the fact that they traded for Garrett Crochet. And then what do? Exactly. So, you know, we're going to talk about the Red Sox. We're going to try to throw in a few things here. And yeah, let's get right down to it. So first things first, we got to talk about the Patriots. Patriots are number one. It is football. Football runs deep, especially in New England. And there is some new coaches here in Foxborough. Just to show a few, on the offensive side, we've got Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator, got Ashton Grant as the quarterbacks coach, Tony Dews, the running backs coach, Thomas Brown as the wide receivers coach, Thomas Brown as the tight ends coach. Apologize for the little off-put there, but they just brought in Doug Marrone, Jason, I think is hogtailing, I think it is, and Riley Larkin, John Straits. On the defensive side, you got the defensive coordinator, Terrell Williams, Clinton McMillan, Zach Kerr, Kevin Richardson, Milton Patterson, and then Jeremy Springer is retaining his spot on as special teams coordinator, which, not for nothing, with Jeremy Springer retaining the spot, I think a part of that is because he knew how to talk to the fans. He knew how to say to the fans, listen, they have every right to boo us. Because let's face it, we do. But they just sucked. They sucked. And while you had Dietrich Wise, you had Jelani Tavai, you had all the other players coming out and attacking the fans, you had Jeremy Springer basically saying that, no, the fans have every right. It's on us to be better. And if we're not better, then that's what we get. That's how it goes. So I like the fact that Springer is still on staff, and not for nothing, the special teams, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Definitely was not one of the low points, that's for sure. And if it was, it wasn't high up there. So, but when it comes to the coaching staff, you know, I've heard a lot about it because obviously with the addition of Josh McDaniels, right? That's kind of the big thing. The addition of Josh McDaniels. Here is a guy that has never worked with Mike Vrabel before. Sure, you know, he was going against him in practice. You know, while he was coaching offense, Vrabel was playing defense. Maybe had a little bit of interaction in terms of Vrabel being part of the tight end, kind of learning some of the routes, some of the plays, obviously to score all his 10 touchdowns. So, there's maybe been a little bit of interaction, but it was always from a player-coach standpoint. McDaniels has never coached with Vrabel. And McDaniels has gone on to be a head coach twice in his career. He's been an offensive coordinator for a very long time and was a very successful offensive coordinator in his career. But with McDaniels coming back, I've heard some argue that it's Kraft's hire, basically. He basically said to Vrabel, listen, Vrabel, if I'm going to give you sole control of personnel power, you're going to make the final decision, on draft. You're going to bring your guy in from the Giants. Then at least do this for me, right? At least bring in, or at least have Mike or Josh McDaniels be your offensive coordinator, right? Kind of, hey, I'll give you this power, which will supersede Elliott Wolf, but then you have to have Josh McDaniels in as the offensive coordinator. And while, that could very well be the case, I'm not going to deny that outright because it's not like I'm in the building and I know kind of what's going on. No, I don't. Like that's idiotic for me to, say that and assume that. But I think what it does is it's able to provide stability for this team in a situation where they need it. They have a young quarterback who has shown some great potential. And listen, was he perfect? God, no. Absolutely not. He already had double-digit interceptions. Luckily for him, he didn't tie Peyton's record, which thank God. But he showed potential in an offense that wasn't great, with Alex Van Pelt. And, I think with Van Pelt, his day is done. He's not a good play caller. His system was average at best. And listen, you could argue too that his system was fine. It was the rest of the players who made his system look like garbage. And you know what? I'll give that to you. I'll 100% give that to you because it has been ridiculous watching Jalen Polk, who had flashes of, I don't want to say greatness, like, oh my God, he's the next Randy Moss. No. But flashes of being a good, solid player in this league during the preseason. And then all of a sudden the regular season hits and bam, he just falls off like an effing cliff and then has the gall to say, I'm the most hated player. I have the best hands in the league. It's like, bro, you couldn't do crap. All right. You're a nobody, but there's so much young talent on this team that Josh McDaniels now has the opportunity to really showcase himself. And what he can do is hopefully develop Drake May, continue learning that footwork, continue working from under center, continue developing how to read defenses, and even talking on the Julian Edelman podcast, talking about how he wants his quarterback, the Julian Edelman podcast, Games with Names, how he wants his quarterback to be able to assist his offensive line and be able to call out the protection. There are some teams out there that have the offensive line calling out the protection based on the fronts and based on the defensive look, where I think, from the conversation with Edelman and McDaniels, I think McDaniels wants his quarterback to do that. And you know what? I would too. Have one guy be able to call out everything, be able to oversee, everything. Yes, it could be easier for May to have that passed off to an experienced offensive line. And for somebody like David Andrews, who, of course, got injured, did not play most of this year, be able to call out the fronts. Okay, I get that. While Drake May learns and progresses to understand what he's seeing and how the front is going to affect this play. So I'm excited about it. But the other thing is too, you have Vrabel bringing in Thomas Brown as the tight ends coach and passing game coordinator, as well as Doug Marrone, who still doesn't technically have a role on the staff yet, but I feel like it would be safe to assume he's going to be the next O-line coach, which when the Patriots played the Jaguars in 2017, Bill Belichick sang Doug Marrone's praises about how great that offensive line was. And it was. I mean, to be able to protect Blake Bortles and make Blake Bortles look good, that's That's impressive. I mean, I've always been of the notion where I would rather build up my offensive and defensive line, build the trenches, because if you have elite trenches, like on the offensive side, let's say, it's going to make a mediocre quarterback and mediocre receivers look good. And same thing with a stout defensive line. If you have a stout defensive line, it's going to make the cornerbacks look very good because the line's going to pressure the quarterback. It's going to make the throw be off timing, and the cornerbacks are there to scoop it up. So Belichick sang Doug Marrone's praises. And, again, I've heard some discussions that, well, is this Vrabel protecting, having any safeguards in case this season goes under? Because he's got two guys now who are experienced offensive coordinators in Doug Marrone and Thomas Brown, both of which were head coaches. Now, Thomas Brown was an interim head coach. Doug Marrone was the head coach at one point to an AFC championship game with the Jaguars. But, and that was according to Greg Bedard. Greg Bedard mentioned that, saying, well, if this season goes poorly, he's got two offensive coordinators he can just bring in right there. And I'm definitely paraphrasing. Hopefully I'm not taking Bedard out of context. I respect what he does and his writing and his knowledge of the game. But I was kind of stunned at that, because you mean to tell me that if this season goes poorly, that McDaniels is gone, and then, all right, Thomas Brown, you're the next guy because you were the passing game coordinator. You're the next offensive coordinator. We'll just fill somebody else in for that role, which, again, it would be shocking if they did that. It would be shocking if Mike Vrabel and the Kraft family, who just went through hell, basically, with Gerard Mayo, this put together awful staff, and then let them all go basically after 1 year. You really think they're going to do that? Especially to a guy. Now, if you want to talk behind the curtain and say that, if this season goes poorly and we have a 25th or below ranked offense, then yes, you can let go of McDaniel. But I feel like, again, the continuity there is vital. Is vital for a young quarterback. I mean, I'm just trying to remember who it was that brought up the fact that you have to have stability for young quarterbacks. I think it was even Peyton Manning, who said that these teams are ruining young quarterbacks because of the fact they're constantly changing. They're constantly going in and out, trying to, whether it's coach, whether it's an offensive coordinator is getting, hired to be a head coach, or if they suck, the offense sucks and they fire the guy. Which, again, if you have a bottom ranked offense, yeah, deservedly so, you should fire that offensive coordinator. But when you have a first year quarterback, a rookie quarterback, there's a lot that's going to go on. And as we all should remember, Mac Jones. Now, I'm not saying the dude was going to be, a Super Bowl winning, multiple time Super Bowl winning quarterback. But going from Josh McDaniels to friggin' Matt Patricia and Joe Judge as co-offensive coordinators, I mean, how worse can it get? And of course, Mac Jones, who's had basically high-level offensive coordinators his whole life from high school onward, yes, it's understandably so why you would get pissed off knowing that you have a defensive coordinator and basically, basically a special teams guy calling the shots on offense. It's ridiculous, right? So that's the thing that I would be weary of if this season goes poorly. God forbid, right? If this upcoming season goes poorly on offense, do you really think they're going to sit there and throw Josh McDaniels under the bus like that after everything that has gone on with this team over the last 5 years? That's why I would be really, really surprised if that's the case. You know, is to let Josh go like that, because don't forget, we are now on 3 head coaches in 3 years, 6 or 7 starting quarterbacks in 5 years, and 5 offensive coordinators in 5 years. I'd be hard pressed, even if we had the worst ranked offense in this league, I'd be hard pressed to see the Crafts let McDaniels walk, even if we were the last team. This rebuild is going to take some time. Now, I don't believe that this offense is bad enough to be the worst in the league. I don't. Even with, especially with Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator. But it's going to be, I think that aspect of it is going to be very interesting. So frequent commenter, not Doug, the Mayo year was just a wasted year. Shame on the Crafts for that. And yes, as I said on my show last week or 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago maybe, that there were a lot of issues when it came to the Crafts and Mayo, not only hiring, but then firing, in that, yes, the Crafts absolutely deserve a lot of blame, if not the majority of the blame. Let's not let Gerard Mayo walk either. You know, Gerard Mayo was, again, he had a lot of flaws, not only in game, in season, but I would say even leading up to it. Again, with the Crafts knowing they're going to get rid of Belichick, and we had to interview 12 offensive coordinators who most denied a second interview because they were like, absolutely not. I'm not going to go in for an interview where we're going to be basically shooting the shit and not talking football. Like, the whole point of these job interviews is to talk football, to understand the scheme. So with Robin Glazier, Gerard Mayo, and Elliot Wolf, they didn't talk football, which is wild. So let's not let Gerard Mayo walk. Yes, the Crafts deserve a lot of blame, but there is some blame to Gerard Mayo too. And so yes, and as you can see below, what the coaching staff tells us about the future of the Patriots. And that's why I'm so excited to have this staff, right, so far. Because when you look at it, Josh McDaniels, Thomas Brown is the passing game coordinator and tight ends coach. Once again, I do apologize for the confusion. But also Doug Marrone as, right now, TBD, but probably the offensive line coach. I wouldn't be surprised. But with those 3 guys, this is a very stable staff. When I'm looking at this is a very stable staff where I would be, I think some of these guys probably should or could earn higher up roles, coordinator positions, and or head coaching positions later on. But for all intents and purposes, I'm looking at this going, here's a lot of experience. Here's a lot of guys that, might not, I don't want to say be well known, but they might not be top priority for positions down the road, whether it's the next year or the year after that, which again is something that coaching staffs need. You need a lot of stability. I mean, I've mentioned this before and I'll say it again. look at our staff from Bill Belichick's hiring. We had Charlie Weiss and Romeo Crennel as the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. That lasted for 3 Super Bowls. Then we moved on to Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator, and then Matt Patricia as the defensive coordinator. And correct me if I'm wrong, but pretty sure those are the next 2 guys. Obviously, we have 2007. We have 2008 with Matt Castle. Josh McDaniels goes on. Bill O'Brien moves up to the offensive coordinator. Matt Patricia's still the guy. And then Billy O goes on to Penn State. Josh McDaniels comes back. And it's been pretty much the same thing. We had Matt Patricia go on to Detroit. Brian Flores comes in after that. It's been a lot of just the same thing, and it's great. The stability has been great. That's part of the reason why we've had 20 years of success, is because we weren't concerned with guys moving on. You know, I just heard, again, on the Games with Names podcast, Edelman referencing the fact that he had I think it was on when Edelman was on Zolak and Bertrand. He had basically the same offense his whole career when he started with Billy O. He started with Billy O'Brien, then Josh McDaniels. It's basically the same thing. Maybe terminology was slightly different, but it was the same, which is why stability is key. And that's what I am excited about with this coaching staff. And I think that this coaching staff has that ability to be stable, which is something that I think this team desperately needs, because we need to grow. We're so young. Some are raw, some just flat out suck. And some are kind of in that in between, trying to find, you know, their special skills, where they belong. And they know they belong. They should belong, but it's trying to find that. And that's what I'm hoping that this coaching staff can point out, can figure out, and then make great. Like I said, I got a high bar. I got a minimum 7 to 8 wins for this team next year. Currently constituted. I understand we're going to get, hopefully get some free agents. I hope we make some trades, and we're going to draft some players. But currently constituted with this coaching staff so far, yeah, I think I'm on minimum 8 wins next year. We should absolutely be on the in the hunt category. You know, when you're watching in December, late January, you'll see the division winners, who's on the wild card, and in the hunt, kind of on the bubble. We should absolutely be one of those teams. So, it's going to be interesting. I think it's really going to be interesting. And speaking of, Drake May and how, good he was last year, guess what? Drake May is now a Pro Bowler as a rookie. Yay, Drake May, Pro Bowl. Woohoo! He gets to throw that on his resume. Come on, everybody. Let's celebrate. Right? Come on, Drake May. Yeah, let's go. He is that dude, right? Really? Are we going to do this? Because no, that is, it's so wild to me that, again, good for him. Hey, round of applause. He gets to show his face in Miami this weekend, but it's really, not only is the game gone, there is no game anymore. It's a skills competition, but also a couple players had to leave for him to make the jump. Patrick Mahomes is obviously not going to be in it because he's in the Super Bowl. Josh Allen left. I think, who was the other one? Lamar Jackson, I think, bowed out. If it wasn't him, it was Burrow. But either way, he just got the, hey, you around? Oh, you are? Great. You're a Pro Bowl now. I don't like that. And I'm not demeaning Drake May. That's not my point. The whole point of this is not to demean Drake May and the accomplishment of, being one of the top 7 calls that they make, right? That's not the point. The point of this is just to talk about how crazy it is that, okay, yeah, it's great to celebrate accomplishments, and it is kind of an accomplishment, but I saw a lot of fans, a lot of you guys out there who are like, well, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, just naming the list of all the rookie quarterbacks who never made the Pro Bowl except one, which is Drake May. Yeah, well, don't forget, Mac Jones got the same call 4 years ago. Okay? And look at Mac Jones' career. I'm not saying Drake May is Mac Jones either. But I do just kind of find it ridiculous that, we celebrate the Pro Bowl. Hell, I was on here several weeks ago when the Pro Bowls were announced, or a month or two ago when the Pro Bowls were announced. And I was going, why? Why do we care? It's the freaking Pro Bowl. Maybe back in the day, yeah, that was part of the measurement in terms of how good you were. And back then, too, unless you were injured or playing in the Super Bowl, actually, no, even back then, it was the week after the Super Bowl. So they were there. They were in Hawaii. But, a lot of people now don't even go to the Pro Bowls anymore. That's the new thing. That's the new trend. It's not about, it's sure to get that honor is nice, but it means nothing. It truly means nothing anymore. And you know what? That's a lot of things. And like I said, the point of this is not to belittle Drake May and to say, hey, I'm Drake May, Pro Bowl quarterback. That's not the point of this. The point of this is just to point out the just absolute straight down, fall off a cliff that the Pro Bowl once meant something, and now it's ruined. It's useless. It really is the most useless all-star game amongst all 4 sports. It really is. And if you had to rank the all-star weekends, the all-star games, it's clearly hockey, baseball, basketball, football. And basketball and football are really, it's hockey, baseball, ... a cliff, then basketball and football. It's like there really is no good all-star game anymore. Even the all-star weekends, kind of fun, but it's sad. It really is sad how far these games have fallen. And they once meant something, and now they don't. So listen, all in all, props to Drake May. Congrats on being one of the top 7 callers to agree to go and represent the Patriots at the Pro Bowl. I truly mean that. That's a great honor to call yourself a Pro Bowl quarterback. But again, it's sad. It really is kind of sad to see, just everything else that goes along with, being named the Pro Bowl quarterback. It's not the same anymore. It just isn't. And, you hate to see it, man. You hate to see it. So moving on, we got some Bruins talk. Got all 4 teams going on tonight. And the Bruins, man, again, the number one question I have with this team, and this is probably the overarching theme of this segment, is who is this team? Who are they? Are they the team that played well and beat Tampa convincingly at home and was able to stand toe-to-toe with the Panthers the last time they played them down in Florida. Yeah, they won kind of fluky in that game, but at the same time, they were playing toe-to-toe with them. So are they that team who also had a 7-2 stretch in 9 games at one point this season? Or are they the team that, here, let me get my notes, has gotten their asses handed to them a lot of times this year, a lot of times, including the 5-1 loss versus New Jersey and the 7-2 loss last night against, oh, that's right, the third worst team in the NHL, the Sabres, who are literally at the very bottom of the Eastern Conference. Who the hell are they? And it kind of drove me up a wall watching that game last night. You know, once Tage or Tag Thompson got that hat trick, he knew it was over. He knew this game was over, that this team was going to give up, which they did, and just allow goal after goal after goal after goal. So I wanted to see how many times this season the Bruins have allowed 4 or more goals, right? And I actually have them all right here. Thank you to Excel and numbers, I'm on Microsoft or Apple, so it's numbers, but even still, they have given up 4 or more goals, whether it's a win or a loss, 19 times in 52 games so far, right? 19. Okay. So that to me says, hey, we're allowing 4 or more goals in 37% of our games. They are allowing 4 or more goals on average more than 1/3 of their games. That's absurd. Absurd. And so when doing it, I wanted to also see kind of what the term for blowout is in hockey. And I saw some say it was 6 goals or more. Some say it was 4 goals or more. And so just for, S and G's, I figured, you know what? Let's stick with the 4 or more goals in terms of constituting a blowout. Consists of 4 or more goals. On the season so far, they have been blown out 11 times. 9 of those games were started by Jeremy Swayman. And it was just kind of like, what is going on here? Because Swayman argued time and time and time again all summer long, almost going into the year, that he deserved to rewrite the contracts for goalies. And then he came down a little bit, but, hey, I still deserve to be top 5. After we traded Linus Ullmark, after he never started more than 45 games in a single season. That's Jeremy Swayman for you, right? And so of those games that he started, right? He has allowed 4 or more goals in 11 of 15 games. He has played in 15 of these games that have allowed 4 or more goals, and he has he's allowed 4 or more goals in 11 of them, some of which he got pulled early, which is why it's not on the stat sheet that he is, that it's 11 out of 15, right? So, for instance, Jeremy Swayman on November 5th, in the loss to the Maple Leafs, they lost 4-0. Swayman got pulled, in that game for an empty netter to try to get the Bruins back into it. And, of course, the Leafs scored an empty netter in which they gave up the fourth goal. But in terms of the, let's say, game number one, where the loss was 6-4 to the Panthers and Korpisalo was in net, the fact that it was 6-4, yes, doesn't constitute a blowout in terms of statistics. But if you watch that game, you know the Panthers owned their ass in game number one of the season. You knew they owned their ass. And so, yeah, it is dire straits for this Bruins team. And going along with the fact that, hey, who are they, right? I would argue that this Bruins team is the team that is getting blown out, is the team that just does not care. They don't. And you could argue that's from a leadership standpoint. You could argue that's from a talent standpoint. If you try to argue with me that that's from a coaching standpoint, then leave. Get out. Because the coaching, how many times have the Bruins fired a coach under this Don Sweeney, thank you, Don Sweeney regime? Don Sweeney brought in oh goodness, the Golden Knights coach. Wow, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Regardless, they brought him in, and DeBrusque and some of the others whined about, oh, he's too hard on me. All right, they let him go. They went on to have the best season of NHL history, only to crap the bed in the first round of the playoffs. And then, of course, what did him and Vegas do that same year? Oh, that's right. Go on to win the cup. And so then they brought in Jim Montgomery, who was part of that. And, his message wasn't getting to the team. He tried every which tactic, whether it was screaming at Marchand on the bench, shoving him. Didn't work. So, in all actuality, this team is a team that just doesn't care anymore. They're not the team of Zdeno Chara. They're not the team of Patrice Bergeron. No. I don't know what the difference has been. I don't know if this is the year that everything is finally caught up to them. But this team, to me, when watching them play, is not the team that beat down on Tampa in Boston or played tough, hard-nosed hockey that should have won, while playing in Florida their last game, but then, and then by some random puck luck, won off a pass from Pastanak. That's not this team. This team is the one that played against Jersey the other night, where they got their asses handed to them 5-1, and the team that did the same thing last night against the third worst team in hockey. And frequent commenter, not Doug, also noting they got rid of the wrong goalie. I agree to some extent, because I agree with the fact that, yes, they should have held on to Linus Ullmark maybe a little bit longer. And now looking back on it, yeah, maybe Ullmark should have been the guy to keep, and we should have gotten rid of Swayman. I would have told Swayman to go kick rocks, and you're either going to sign this RFA on December 1st or I'm going to trade your ass. And that's what they should have done, because to pay him that kind of money, to not give the Bruins a in-between deal, which a lot of guys do, and especially in this Bruins organization, a lot of them do. Marchand did it. Pastanak did it. McAvoy did it. So I feel like that also drew a lot of, heat from from Marchand, allegedly, and it turned the tables in the locker room. Because a lot of these guys are asking, who the hell is he? And I don't disagree with that. Just going back to, Swayman and how many times his team has been blown out. Let's look at Swayman and how many times he's allowed 4 or more goals in a single season. This year, he's allowed 11 in 37 starts, 10 in 43 starts last year, 8 in 33 the year before, 9 in 39 in 2021, 2022. Swayman's a friggin' sieve right now. And it's crazy to me that he is getting the money that he's getting. And the worst part about it is the NHL, in their contract, which is good and bad, it's a hard cap, man. Every single cent that you pay is going to that player, injured or not. And it's counting against your cap. There is no cap is crap like in the NFL. The NFL, you can have the guy re-sign. You can do all these crazy things. You can throw him a signing bonus, which will take off the cap hit on the books. There's a lot you can do, which is why whenever you hear Robert Kraft talk about, oh, well, we need to make sure that we stay within the cap, call BS, because it is. That's the NFL. I know I just switched sports a little bit, but to get back to the point, it's tough because when you look at those stats, again, 11 games this year, Swayman has allowed 4 or more goals, and it's been 37 starts, right? So if you do that math, that is pretty much 30% of the time. 1 of every 3 games, you could argue, because the actual number is 29.7. So you round up. But even still, 1 in 3 games, this dude is allowing 4 or more goals. Now, funny enough, it's not all losses, because the Bruins, when allowing 4 or more goals, are 1-16-2. And somehow they've made it to overtime twice, right? So it is kind of sad. This Bruins team is just a sad state of affairs. And I'm telling you, if between now and I think when was the trade deadline? March 7th? I think it's March 7th, the last time I checked. If between now and March 7th, the Bruins, for all intents and purposes, let's say they win, 3/4 of their games, I'm still going to want this team to sell, because this is not a team that is going to make it to the postseason, or not make it to the postseason. They're not going to go far. If they somehow, on God's green earth, sneak in and become the final wild card seed, they're still not going to make a run. And so I know what you're saying. You're probably like, well, Tim, you keep preaching that you always want to make the playoffs. Correct. I do. But also sometimes you just got to see the writing on the wall. And and to pull a classic Rick Pitino, Zdeno Chara is not walking through that door. Patrice Bergeron is not walking through that door. David Krejci, Tim Thomas are not walking through that door. You know what I mean? And that's the sad part, is that the leadership on this team doesn't seem to be getting it done. The team is clearly not getting it done. They look like friggin' like their heads are up their asses, especially on defense. Not to mention, Don Sweeney, while he's done a lot to try to mask, the deficiencies of trading away draft pick after draft pick after draft pick to go make that run for the Stanley Cup, you could argue it's finally caught up to him. It is finally caught up to this team. They are done. They're done. And I believe that this team is a team that does not have the capabilities to make a long playoff run. They do not have the capabilities to squeak into the playoffs, go on a win streak, to get in, and then carry that momentum to the second, third round. I'm not even going to give them the Stanley Cup, in the fourth round. I'm just saying I don't think they have that capability. The top center that they signed in the offseason is now centering their third line. And so it's really tough. It's tough to watch. And the funny part about it is I just mentioned the classic Rick Pitino line. I said Zdeno Chara's not walking through that door. Well, funny enough, he is, but just in a different way. Kevin Paul Dupont, joined this team. Apparently, is joining the team in a front office role. He wrote for the Boston Globe as of this morning. Zdeno Chara is back with the Bruins as a consultant. Can Big Z help them from becoming a playoff? Did not qualify. And this year, I don't know. I don't think so. And the crazy part is he's back in a front office role. Nobody knows what exactly, and the report that he got were from two people who are not team employees. So take that for what it's worth. But there's a whole article on the Globe if you want to read it. But the thing about it is, again, they don't know what Chara's new role is, but Sweeney noted the sides are still crafting Chara's new role with the club, in that he is going to have some say in the organization as to what they're going to do. And it's the thing about that is I'm not sure if Chara should be the one to come in to then break this all up, right? Because if Chara comes in, he's going to see Pastanak. He's going to see McAvoy. He's going to see Marchand and be like, I helped those guys. I mentored those guys when they were young. This team needs a shakeup. This team needs a shakeup. And yes, that's going to hurt for this season. I know. But look at what we did with Phil Kessel. Look at how we got Tyler Seguin out of that deal. I'm not saying we're going to get a first rounder with Brad Marchand. But again, there is something there. And I'm also not saying to trade these guys away for a bag of pucks. I'm not. But I'm saying if a good offer comes to the table for Brad Marchand, let's say, and let's say it's a young center or a young winger who is able to score, he is able to move. We're also going to get a first-round pick out of it. I know, I'm hypothetical here. And it's all we have to give up in the deal is Brad Marchand and maybe Trent Frederick. Just throw him in there anyway. Will Chara be able to pull that trigger? Will Chara be able to okay the deal with Don Sweeney? Especially if he has a say on what's going on in the trade deadline. Part of the reason that this team just can't get past this is because they love their guys. And I don't blame them, right? That's what us as fans do. We love our players, especially when they're playing well. But when the front office loves their guys, that's when you start to see bad contracts, refusal of trades, and just a team that will eventually peter out. That's it. And so, yes, it's cool that they're adding Chara, but I feel like they need an outside guy. They need an outside view perspective who understands the game, who understands kind of what this team needs and how to go about getting it, especially through trades at this trade deadline. And now I guess that, I think Jeremy Jacobs basically backed Don Sweeney, or is it Cam who backed Don Sweeney in their recent comment? But regardless, they're gonna give this Don Sweeney a shot, and I think he's worn out his welcome. And I will still, to this day, I do not care, harp on that 2015 draft. Because if you want to sit there and tell me that, we got DeBrusque at least, and he turned out to be really good. Nah, DeBrusque was overrated. Okay, yeah, he had a couple good seasons scoring 20-plus goals, but that was it. He was never a consistent 20-goal scorer. Meanwhile, you had Sebastian Aho in that draft. You had Matt, not Duchesne. Oh, my goodness. I am really bad with names right now. But the kid from the Islanders, the number one center for the Islanders, he was the very next pick after our 3 picks. So Don Sweeney, yes, has worn out his welcome, and things need to change. Things absolutely need to change in there. We got frequent commenter Sports Mom. The Bruins do need that veteran presence like Chara and Bergeron again that takes ownership. I agree. Hence my Chara and Bergeron and Krejci and Rask and Thomas. They're not walking through that door, folks. They're not. And as much as I can't stand Rick Pitino for not only saying that, but also what he did to the Celtics during the late 90s. This team this team just doesn't have it. They don't. And so I do think that this team needs a desperate shakeup. And now talking about a team going from one team that needs a shakeup to a team that might need a shakedown, the Celtics, the Boston Celtics. I mean, this team right now is the team of Marcus Smart again. And here I was thinking this entire time that it was all Marcus Smart's fault. The fact that Tatum and Brown weren't reaching their potential were because of Marcus Smart. These guys right here. Nope. I don't know. I'm starting to, maybe take that back a little bit. Don't get me wrong, though. Brad Stevens did the right thing in getting rid of Marcus Smart. 1,000%. 1,000% needed to get rid of Marcus Smart. But you know why I'm kind of wondering if it might not totally be on Marcus Smart? It's because the Bruins lost It's because the Celtics lost their 15th game of the season. 15th game of the season the other night. And actually, they're currently on right now. But they lost their 15th game of the season. And when you look at the dates of when the Celtics lost their 15th game of the season during the Tatum Brown era, starting from the very beginning in 17 and 18, going bottom up. January 27th, December 31st, January 28th, 2020, 2021, obviously had the COVID year. But then in 21-22, December 17th, 22-23, January 26th. Last season was March 25th. March 25th, they lost their 15th game. And then, of course, this season, January 27th. I mean, what the hell? What is going on with the Celtics? And I'm starting to wonder if the Celtics might be a little bit too arrogant. Why do I say that? Because you have Joe Mazzulla working with the Celtics. You have him coaching them in such a way that is forcing them, like I mentioned last week or a couple weeks ago, my last show, forcing them to take almost 53s a game on total 90 to 100 shots. It's almost taking half, if not more than half, of their threes are coming on, or of their shot attempts coming on threes. And look at what it's representing. Look at what it's doing. You have these guys playing like crap. You do. I mean, look at that game the other night against Houston, right? They were up 12 in the fourth quarter. They subsequently blow it. Dylan Brooks has a great game. Amir Thompson has a great game. And they let them just go all out. They let them do it. You know why? Because part of their mindset, part of their analytic mindset is the fact that, oh, don't worry, Dylan Brooks made 5 threes in the first half. Yeah, regression to the mean. He's going to come way back down. He's probably going to go 1 for 10 in the second half, or 1 for 7 in the second half, right? Wrong. Dylan Brooks then proceeds to put 5 more threes up in the second half. Meanwhile, when the Celtics aren't shooting good, Joe Mazzulla comes out there and is like, oh, that's okay. Let me show you what the expected outcome should have been. Again, this is the whole analytic crap that I can't stand, that I hate. And listen, I'll give Mazzulla credit. He took 100% of the blame last night, especially for the way that game ended. And boy, did it end badly. You have Luke Cornett just on an inbound for Houston get totally pantsed on the first inbound that put Houston up 2, where I would argue the Houston center grabbed Cornett, which helped Cornett just get pantsed the way he did, and gave him the easy dunk, while on the second inbound pass with, I want to say, 7 seconds left. You have Luke Cornett guarding the guy, and they were both, him and Brown were on the near side towards the inbounder. And I don't know if Mazzulla tried to make a call, try to get them to switch, and Brown and Cornett got caught halfway. Next thing you know, Thompson comes in, takes a step back, fade away in the box, bam, done, ball game. I mean, it was just the miscommunication there was brutal. The fact that Luke Cornett was all the way up at the 3-point line on the first inbound was brutal. It was just one of those things that just should not happen. Again, I had this team pegged to not only finish as the number 1 seed. Let me see if I can I had them not only to finish as the number 1 seed, but they were supposed to be this, this great team that was going to run all over the league. Now that they finally have their championship, they're gonna steamroll the league. They played for an entire year together, finally won their championship, and now they know how to do. They know how to play with one another. They know where everyone's gonna go. Look, I had the Celtics winning 60 games. Now they're on pace to, I think, barely win 50. That was my prediction. 60-22. And I'm looking at it going, damn, do I look stupid now? Because not only that, I had the Sixers, Pacers, Knicks, Bucks, then the Cavs. I had the Cavs just scraping by. Damn. I will be the first to admit, God, I look absolutely foolish. I thought the Cavs were a flash in the pan last year. I did. And listen, that doesn't mean I hate Donovan Mitchell. I don't respect Mitchell. Are you kidding me? I love Donovan Mitchell. I sometimes I wish I would rather have him than Brown, but at the same time, that doesn't mean I don't like Jaylen Brown either. Okay, let's just pump the brakes. Like I like Brown. I like the Brown Tatum dynamic. They know how to play with one another, which is good. But man, this whole analytic based concept is no way to be a coach. And yes, I'm talking about Joe Mazzulla. You cannot write off a good performance from another player who might not be the superstar on the team, but you can't write that off by saying, oh, well, he's their sixth man, or he's the eighth guy off the bench, or hell, he's the last of the starters. You still have to take them seriously when they're shooting lights out. I think Dylan Brooks went 10 for 13, 10 for 12 from threes the other night. So again, it's this whole idea of analytics, this whole idea of regression to the mean or expected outcomes. It's not about expected outcomes. It's what the hell happened, right? That's what we should be concerned about, what the outcome is. And to answer the question, does this Celtics team have the DNA to win multiple championships? I can tell you this. They sure as hell have the talent. But do they need this wake-up call? Do they need, when is it finally going to hit them? That, oh, damn, we're back to our old selves with Marcus Smart, where, again, our 15th losses would come right around this time frame, late December to between late December and late January. We lost 15 games in March last year on our way to steamrolling everybody all the way to a championship. Where the hell is that team? Where are they? That's the million-dollar question. And that's why, not for nothing, I understand the whole Ime Udoka situation. Well, I don't think we'll ever learn what happened. But how funny is it that Ime Udoka allegedly slept with a wife of an owner or one of the very higher ups on the team? Just for a year and a half later, the ownership group to sell the team. If they were going to, and I know that, Wick's father, Irv, finally put his foot in the ground. I think that was kind of, that was it. It had nothing to do with Ime and all of that nonsense. But God, how funny is it that with Ime Udoka getting fired, getting let go for all of that nonsense, which again, it sounded like it was a consensual thing. The owner just was pissed that it happened to him, right? So even though it was a consensual, I kind of understand the firing, but at the same time, how funny is it that they're selling the effing team right now, right? They're selling the team. In which case, I would say, just sell the damn team, and you should have kept Ime as the coach, because not for nothing, I still think we would have won the championship last year. Not to take anything away from Joe Mazzulla or last year's team, but I still think we would have won the championship last year had Ime remained our coach. I really do. I loved Ime's style and how he just came after them, and that he didn't allow them to rest on their laurels. And when they did, he called them out for it, which is exactly what they need right now. They absolutely need that. And speaking of selling the Celtics, Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, is bidding to be the next owner of the Celtics. And I will say this, I'm totally here for it. The owner of the Eagles wants to buy the Celtics. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, Tim, but you hate Philly. You hate Philadelphia and all of that. and all that it stands for. I mean, look at what's been going on with the Commanders, fans and Eagle fans. 1,000%. You are correct. I totally can't stand their obnoxiousness in every which way possible. But let's not forget, Jeffrey Lurie is a hometown guy. He is a Boston guy. He's a Celtics fan. The only reason why he owns the Eagles is because his uncle wouldn't let him purchase the Patriots, and instead he purchased the Eagles for more money. He would have bought the Patriots cheaper than what he ended up buying the Eagles for. And so, yes, like I am totally here for Jeffrey Lurie to be the owner of the Celtics. My one stipulation, which is why I think it will actually be a really good thing if Lurie does become the owner of the Eagles, is the fact that the Eagles are consistently one of the top spending teams in the NFL. Yes, they do have some down years, but their down years are 15th, 16th in the league. They are one of the top spending teams. From a 4-year period, looking it up from 2016 to 2020, the Eagles were the number one spending real cash team on SportTrack. Yes. And so if he carries that mindset over to this team, over to the Celtics, and he does not act like John Henry and those scumbags, who I will talk about in just a few moments, but if he doesn't act like them and acts like the Eagles owner that he is, oh, you bet your ass, I am totally here for it. Let's go. You got another hometown kid in Jeffrey Lurie, who is a diehard Celtics fan, who was at Game 1 with A.J. Brown and a couple other Eagles players last year in the NBA Finals. Let's go. Totally here for it. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you want the Eagles owner, Jeffrey Lurie, buying the Celtics? I mean, listen, if I had to rank it, I think it might be Steve Pagliuca as 1A. Jeffrey Lurie, though, 1B, of course. And frequent comment to Sports Mom, trying to change sports here, change topics. I want the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. We'll talk about the Super Bowl next week, and obviously I want the Eagles as well. It's strange to say. I mean, hell, if the Super Bowl field opened up like it did in Batman Beyond and nobody gets hurt, just want to throw that out there. Nobody gets hurt. And did I say Batman Beyond? I'm sorry. I meant Batman Dark Knight Rises. If the field opens up like Batman The Dark Knight Rises, I would be very content with that being the Super Bowl. Like, just nobody wins. Everybody's safe. Everybody's fine, but nobody wins. So, yes, give me Jeffrey Lurie as the Eagles owner. I would totally be excited about that. And now for the last thing that I'm going to talk about is the Boston Red Sox. I understand kind of everybody's thoughts toward them. You sure as know my thoughts about the Red Sox, about this ownership group, about the front office. I have said it time and time again. Sometimes it almost feels like a broken record, but hey, they keep coming back with more things, in which case I'm very happy to talk about it. So when it comes to the Red Sox, Sean McAdam of Mass Live put out an article saying how John Henry could learn a lesson from Steve Cohen, which is interesting. How could John Henry learn a lesson from the owner of the Mets? Right? That's the million. Like I saw that. I go, hey, that's a good headline, because it got me interested. So Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, was at the Mets Winter Fan Fest, right? And he was part of a panel, which, oh my God, an owner that actually talks to the fans and is open with the fans? Sign me up, man. So he had to explain to the fans why it was unlikely that the team would not re-sign Pete Alonso. In which case, again, I would love to have Pete Alonso But I think what he's going to be asking for is maybe a little too much. Not just for my blood, but especially for the Red Sox organization. But this is the kicker, right? So, yes, Steve Cohen explained to the fans why they wouldn't, but this is why this is interesting. Because minutes prior, according to Sean McAdam's article, minutes earlier, David Stearns, Steve Cohen's president of baseball ops, was constantly interrupted and booed. And when Stearns attempted to speak, he was silenced with chants of "Resign Pete, resign Pete." So, what Sean writes, quote unquote, Cohen then took over the microphone and the conversation. So, needless to say, Steve Cohen had the balls to just walk up to the microphone or go grab the microphone, rip it out of David Stearns' hands, and basically told the whole crowd to shut the hell up, and this is why we're not re-signing him. Quote, Cohen said, quote, "We made a significant offer to Pete. I don't like the structures that are being presented back to us," it said Cohen, in a reference to negotiations with Alonso's representative, Scott Boras. Cohen goes on to say, quote, "I think it's highly asymmetric against us, and I feel strongly about it. And so I will never say no. There's always a possibility, but the reality is we're moving forward. As we continue to bring in players, the reality is it becomes harder to fit Pete into what is a very expensive group of players that we already have. That's where we are, and I'm being brutally honest." Round of applause. Round of applause. I mean, that is exactly what I want my owner to do. If he doesn't like what he hears from the fans, he has no problem going out and explaining himself. Now, that also comes with the predication that, oh, guess what? Dave Cohen also spent $760 million on Juan Soto. He spends the money. He couldn't give a damn about anything except spending money on the best players available. So, and funny enough, McAdam notes that the fan sentiment began to shift. An agitated crowd was suddenly a bit more sympathetic and began to applaud Cohen's remarks, which I am absolutely in agreement with, because that is very straightforward. He has no problem explaining his point of view instead of having the media, just report the rumors and this, that, and the other, that, hey, the Mets are interested, the Mets are interested, the Mets are interested. Oh, no, we're not, because this is what's going on. And I don't mind explaining to the fans what the deal is. And like I mentioned, and Sean McAdam mentions this, that let's address the obvious. Yes, it's a lot easier to win over a fan base after you've overseen payrolls that top $300 million in 3 consecutive seasons. Absolutely. That's what this is all about. And so the fact that he called out John Henry, to say, hey, John, pay attention, because contrast to the Red Sox, John Henry has dramatically slashed spending over the last 5 years, and to make matters worse, become something of a recluse. In a few weeks, it will be 5 full years since Henry fielded questions in a press conference setting. 5 full years in a true back and forth press conference setting. Basically, and this is according to McAdam, and I've been saying this for pretty much the last 5 years, Henry's silence speaks volumes, or at the very least, sends an unmistakable message to the fan base. That message, read below, you're not important. Again, I've said that the last several years that we're not important. We're not. And even though we come on here, we call out the team time and time again for not spending. You have the slime ball that is Sam Kennedy weaving his way, through the conversation of, oh, well, I don't think it's a good thing to discuss payroll. I don't want to give away our competitive advantage. Dude, you don't have a competitive advantage, right? He literally said that during spring training, I want to say, 2 years ago? Not to mention, let's start with what he said just this offseason.
Talk is cheap right now. Words are hollow, but that's what we're gonna work on this offseason.
Really? Talk is cheap and words are hollow? Because if talk is cheap and words are hollow, then you did the right thing by trading for Garrett Crochet. But where's his new deal? Where's his where's his $190 to $260 million new deal? Where is it? Reports were that if and when Crochet got traded, he was more than willing to re-sign with whatever team traded for him. Where's that? Secondly, what was it? How much again did you spend, or did you want to offer Juan Soto? Oh, that's right. $600 million. According to David Ortiz. You weren't even in the ballpark. Once again, building our expectations, saying that you're going to do these things, and then, putting your name in the hat, throwing yourselves out there, but you don't do anything. And, oh, wait, was it – so when we call you out, Sam, when we call you guys out and say, hey, here's an idea, spend that effing money – don't be buying the PGA. Don't buy a new team in Liverpool. Don't spend money on your NASCAR racing nonsense. Wait, we're lying? We are lying when we're saying to everybody that you're the kings of interest? Is that right, Sam? Is that right? Explain that to me one more time, please.
If you think for 1 second that we aren't passionate, committed, dedicated to the Boston Red Sox, you're wrong, you're a liar, and I'll correct you on it because it's total BS.
Where's the correction, Sam? Where is it? I would love to hear the explanation for trading away a generational talent in Mookie Betts. And if you want to give me that he cost too much money, then you are the exact reason why you don't belong where you are. And John Henry does not deserve to be the owner of a sports franchise. Hell, to make it even funnier, they're now going to put the Pittsburgh Penguins on the open market because they don't want because they're trying to look for money. That's right. They're going to put the Penguins on the open market. I mean, it is laughable. And I was taught, that it's really not good or polite to come on to do a show like this, to then besmirch the characters of these people. And I'm not trying to besmirch the character because I don't know them from a hole in the wall. All right? I'm going to preface it with that. But not for nothing, I like to base people on their actions. And your actions tell me that you're a scumbag. You're a cheap scumbag. That's right. You don't go from spending hundreds of millions of dollars on good and awful contracts like Josh Beckett or Carl Crawford, Pablo Sandoval, getting Adrian Gonzalez, who had a very good year here, but we got rid of nonetheless to help sweeten the package. I have seen John Henry spend money out the wazoo, act like Steve Cohen for the most part. For the most part. Again, you want to talk about the A-Rod deal? Yes, they kind of had to rework a few things, try to get him to take a little bit less money, which he would have. The MLBPA came in, told him can't do that, which is why that whole thing fell through, which, hey, turns out it was a great thing for us, right? We won in 2004. But I've seen them spend the money, and kind of act like Steve Cohen, act like the Dodgers in some sense. But now it's almost like this is the curse of Mookie Betts. The curse of the great Bambino 2.0, modern day. Oh, and guess what? When was the last time we won the World Series? 2018? Don't tell me that I'm not going to see another World Series championship until I'm dead in 2104, because some owner who buys the Red Sox then is going to finally spend money and take over the Fenway Sports Group and buy them out completely. That would just be tragic. Absolutely tragic. And baseball is such a simple sport in the way that you can go out and spend big money and get fast results. Football, basketball, baseball, hockey, it's a lot harder to go out and spend big money on superstar talent and have it pay dividends like baseball can. And so that's kind of the thing that just drives me up a wall. And to have to sit there and listen to these nerds, just ruin my favorite team in one of my favorite sports that I just grew up playing, that I wanted to play for the Red Sox. I wanted to be playing in Fenway Park wearing a Red Sox uniform. Now I just have to listen to these bums say this.
Start a cheer. Let's go Red Sox. Let's go Red Sox. Let's go Red Sox.
Go Red Sox.
So it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. And of course, Lucchino's in the background of that, rest in peace. At least he knew how to stand up to John Henry and Tom Warner and how to, spend money. So I don't know. Tell me your thoughts. I appreciate you all sticking around, watching, listening to my commentary. Let me know below though. Do you agree with the Red Sox and just this ownership group saying that you're not very important? Do you believe that the Celtics have the championship DNA in them to repeat this season and win multiple championships from here on out? As well as the Bruins, do they buy or do they sell? Who are they? Comment down below. Also, what are your thoughts on the coaching staff for the New England Patriots? Is Mike Vrabel putting together a good team, do you think, in terms of the staff? Or is there work to be done? Are you upset that we didn't get Ben Johnson? You could follow me on all the social medias right here on Instagram and on X. You can follow me there, as you can see now. And also comment down below. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It helps with the algorithm. Everything helps. Like, share, subscribe. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the Grid Network, I suggest you do that as well. Where is it? Right there. All right. Subscribe to the Grid Network. A lot of great shows. We got even the 8 o'clock spot going on right now. So head on over to see that. And listen, I want to thank you guys so much. I couldn't do this without God, the Lord above. I really appreciate him giving me the opportunity to express my thoughts here on this platform, talking about all 4 of my favorite teams. So listen, thank you guys so much. And I'll catch you next week. We got a little bit of a Super Bowl preview on my end. So it's going to be fun. See you guys then.